all, and welcome to this episode of the Autocar Professional Dialogue. We are sitting here next to the proving grounds of Bosch at the place called Boxburg in Germany, and I have with me Dr. Rolf Bulander, Chairman of the Mobility Solutions business of Bosch. Dr. Bulander, thank you very much for talking to Autocar Professional. You made a very interesting point about, while talking about the diesel powertrain, you said that we are witnessing bans on diesel in various places across the world, and some coming up in 2025. And you said that they are ecologically misguided. Why do you say so? And why do you also think that politicians or policymakers should not focus on promoting only one particular propulsion technology?
There are different reasons for that. First of all, the CO2 requirements in the world cannot only be reached by electromobility. We are a strong supporter of electromobility. We invest a lot in electromobility, and we strongly believe that electromobility will grow significantly in the upcoming years. Yes. But secondly, we need the improvement of the current combustion engines, and this is diesel and gasoline as well. And diesel has a CO2 advantage compared to gasoline of at least 15%. So we should lever that and use that, and should not lose that. The third point is the question of emissions in city. Emissions in cities is a major issue. But we have to distinguish that, because emissions are particles on one side and NOx, oxygen on the other side. Particles for modern diesel cars is not an issue, because particles are removed from a particle filter, which is already introduced since years in a modern environment. So the NOx issue has to be solved, and technology is there to solve the NOx issue. If this NOx issue is applied, if the NOx technology is applied with Euro 6, this will be 100% in Europe. So then these NOx issues are solved for diesel engines, and that's the reason why we support still diesel engines very much, although we believe electromobility will have also a strong increase.
With the developments been made in clean technology for gasoline diesel powertrains, do you expect the longevity of the diesel powertrain in passenger vehicles, including small cars, to go beyond say 2025 or so, because that is what the period is. Industry people say that it will taper off.
Yeah, we strongly believe that diesel engines will survive far beyond 2025. You have to distinguish between the size of the car and the range you want to reach with the car.
What is the threshold in terms of the engine size? About 1.5 or so, you see?
1.5, 1.6 is recommendable, and as longer you want to drive and as heavier your car is, as more diesel should be supported. For smaller cars and shorter distances, maybe gasoline is a better choice.
And what is your view about, say, the Indian government's decision about promoting our, in the new roadmap for mobility solutions in India, promoting electric mobility, and some ministers are also saying that by 2030 they're looking at an all-electric car fleet. Do you think of industry of India's size, is this something which is possible?
For the introduction of electromobility in a society, different roadblocks have to be overcome. First, battery cost. If battery costs are too high, then the consumer simply cannot afford an electric-driven car. This is the first. Second, there has to be an infrastructure for charging. If this infrastructure for charging is not there, a customer will not decide to buy an a battery electric vehicle. And the third, the electricity to be provided for the car has to be generated with regenerative, with green energy. If you simply use coal-generated electricity, your benefit for CO2 is
the well-to-wheel equation is negative.
Exactly,
yeah.
And you have to take into account that for the production of the battery, you need a lot of CO2 to produce that. So the battery electric vehicle first has to run against the disadvantage of the CO2 production of the battery. So this has to be taken into account. And if this equation is positive, then battery yes. If this equation is negative, then you should drive not such a steep ramp up of electromobility, but a more flat ramp up, gradual ramp up of electromobility, because the advantages you get from improving your already existing powertrains is much bigger compared to battery electric vehicles.
And what is your view on synthetic fuels, for example? Because part of the industry is also witnessing that as holding new opportunities. Maybe not immediately, maybe after 2030 or so.
Synthetic fuels are a very important additional key in that, because synthetic fuels start with H2 on one side and end with synthetic diesel on the other side. They provide the possibility to have CO2 neutral energy in standard powertrains, which would be a great advantage if the electricity is generated with green energy.
And I can't end the interview without asking one question about India's focus, the role of India in Bosch's global scheme of things. I understand we already have about over 18,000 engineers there, and India being a hotbed for software development, artificial intelligence is a key focus area for Bosch. What role do you expect India to play in overall scheme of things?
India is one of the most important countries in terms of knowledge, especially for software, in terms of market, especially for size, in terms of development, because of their future. So we invest a lot in India, we rely on India, we have a lot of people in India, and I have close colleagues which I continuously talk to and discuss the Indian market.
Could the Indian center be a global center of excellence for artificial intelligence for Bosch?
Can be. Artificial intelligence can. India's capability can be one cornerstone for artificial intelligence in the world for Bosch.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bulander. Pleasure meeting you.